Excellent.
What's going on, Jamie?
Not much. Just excited to talk about contracts with a coffee. It's not even a coffee. It's a lemon and ginger tea.
So we're here to talk about contracts and sort of the different, I guess, vibes overall of the what we see in the US and what you guys see over in EMEA. How many calls and how many people are we running into that actually even know what CLM is? So curious to hear from you, Jamie, of like when you get on a call with an in-house team or a GC, right? How familiar are they with contract lifecycle management? Do they know what it is? Do they have they heard of it before? Have they seen demos before?
It's a really mixed bag. I think mainly down to like what is contract lifecycle management. I think that people are starting to talk about CLM, and I think there's just varying degrees of I guess interpretation as to what actually is a contract lifecycle management solution. But broadly within EMEA, certainly I do still think there's a lot of people that are just hearing the term for the first time, or kind of really just starting to dip their toe in the ocean that is just legal technology and contract management solutions in general.
Yeah.
Like how is it from your point of view?
Yeah, I think most of the time when you get on a call with an in-house lawyer, right, they know what CLM is, and a lot of times I'm working with other software businesses where even they're like a second-time buyer. We run into a lot of instances where they already have something in place. They're not just like a first-time CLM buyer. So I think almost every call, right, they're going to know what a CLM is or have some sort of idea of like a tool they've used before that they can compare to it.
Sure.
But that being said, I do think obviously a tool like Summize, we're on the forefront of AI adoption in different ways. We can sort of use AI to help in every instance of the contract lifecycle. People are starting to understand that there's maybe a little bit of a shift in like the CLM space. For you, when like are there certain I guess industries you see more are more like early adopters of AI in the legal space?
Obviously, the ones that you might think straight off the bat, right? Software in particular, the software industry those companies tend to be made up of people that are very tech forward thinking, and so very on board with getting a solution in, and it's all about being more efficient and how can organizations within that space do more with less. And so you tend to see software leading the way when it comes to either these point solutions or even dipping their foot in the CLM space. And beyond that, you also see a lot of, for instance, financial services and manufacturing, typically really legacy industries, right? They've been around for ages, and that's what they say about contracts in general, right? Contracts have been kind of leading the way in which we do business for hundreds of years now, and these kind of legacy organizations are actually starting to they're starting to move towards how can we be more efficient and use technology. Is that something you see within the US? I imagine software, yes, but are there any other industries that you see really leading the way?
Absolutely, yeah. So software is definitely an early adopter of these type of tools, but some ones who, like you kind of mentioned, you wouldn't really think of as like the renewable energy space, right, and manufacturing, where they're reviewing and looking at like really long contracts that with legacy solutions, right, can't typically even search across a document, right? It's scanned in. It's it's fuzzy looking, and where they can use something like Summize to easily understand what's in that contract and find the things that they're looking for. So you're totally right. And like these older industries that have a ton of paperwork, right? Tools like this can absolutely make them more efficient. So we've definitely seen them starting to look into ways AI can help them work faster, work smarter. And another interesting one is sports, actually. So we've been working with a lot of lawyers in the sports industry across several different leagues, which which is really cool. It's, makes our job fun because we get to, call into our favorite teams. But yeah, they've been on the kind of the forefront of AI adoption. And it's funny, the use cases is so different from, one organization to the next, whether it is in manufacturing, whether it is in sports, whether it's in software, right? Everyone's looking for, different ways of like, okay, we want to review our customer paper faster, right? It's taking us too long. We want to get a playbook together. We want to, use AI to take a first pass at that, or like we have just a contract repository that has, no AI, so we can't run reports for, any projects that come up. But yeah, it's a wide range of use cases, and those different industries are definitely, on the forefront of tackling, these problems with AI. Working with, all these different types of companies and, all asking like, how can we use generative AI? Do you see a specific contract type or scenario you come across where people like can apply this generative AI sort of use case to, to their contracts?
Well, I know if I was to say NDAs, my CEO would probably slap my wrist. And I know a lot of in-house counsel, they're constantly saying all we see is NDAs, when it comes to utilizing AI. I think there's so many more contract types that can see the benefit from this, and so many different processes. I mean, we work on things all the way from sort of conditional drafting, like actually putting together your own paper, through to that review piece. But really, I think the sky's the limit within reason. Obviously, there's things like token limits and just how far AI can actually go right now based on the technology. So, for all those thinking about EPC contracts, I think that they're very kind of hit and miss. Sometimes they work, sometimes there's just too much information. But certainly for things like kind of master services agreements, sponsorship agreements, influencer agreements, we see loads of those day to day, and it works great. Just in terms of picking, I guess the uptake and the pickup of this across businesses, do you find that you're often speaking to, is it mostly legal teams driving the desire to get a solution like this in place, or you're speaking to wider business teams and different stakeholders?
We've seen the emergence of the legal operations role. So when you get more, you see it a lot with software businesses and just tech businesses overall, where they'll have a legal ops role that will kind of manage the contracting, contract lifecycle management system, and with that implementation and the admin work of it, alongside many other different things that they're doing. But they'll sort of lead the charge, and then they'll loop in sort of, their legal team. They'll loop in rev ops, they'll loop in sales. But we're sort of the mid-market and SME space. You'll see it'll start off with maybe like one or two people in legal to get on that initial call and understand, the challenges they're trying to solve. And then typically from there, they're trying to loop in other departments, specifically like their commercial team, and, operations to, see, how can we help them work faster, as well. And so then it becomes, understanding many different use cases throughout the business. And it's funny, they'll legals, often looked at like, hey, we're, sales will call them the bottleneck. So they're really looking out for the wider business and really trying to make sure, like, let's meet sales needs first, because I know like that'll help get this project approved so we can help them, work faster. So they really, stick their necks out for sales and really try to understand, can this solution help the business, generate revenue faster, right? And if you could show that and prove that to them, to legal, sales, and then anyone who's involved in the buying process, typically they feel very comfortable with a solution like that.
Legal being the bottleneck is something we hear all the time, or legal are the reason that we're not getting this done on time. So certainly commercial users around the business benefit from being involved. We often see a lot of procurement teams and finance teams owning contracts as well, especially in those smaller, more agile businesses. It's often the case that there might be external counsel involved, or there might be one lawyer across the whole business. And so it falls to departments like finance, like procurement, to really kind of take on the mantle of contract owners, whether that be managing contracts post-signature, tracking key obligations, all the way through to being involved in that kind of review process as well. So definitely see kind of the wider business application really across the board, not just legal.
I didn't really take one sip of my coffee. I'm looking forward to it, enjoying it after this. But
I'm almost finished mine.
Yeah.
Cheers.